You were promised a deal. Study hard, get the degree, climb the ladder, buy the house, retire at 65. That was the contract. Except nobody told you the contract was already shredded before you signed it. Right now, across every major Western city, something unprecedented is happening. The white-collar middle class, the backbone of modern economies, is quietly vanishing. Not because they're lazy, not because they didn't work hard enough, but because the system they were promised no longer exists. Here's what they're not telling you on the news. Inflation has been outpacing wages for 15 consecutive years. Studio apartment in London now costs what a 4-bedroom house cost your parents. AI isn't just assisting workers anymore. It's replacing $80,000 a year analysts with $20 a month software subscriptions. And the 40-hour work week, try 60. 70 if you want that promotion they'll probably give to someone's nephew anyway. You're working harder than your grandparents ever did, earning less in real terms. You're supposed to smile about it because you have a fancy job title and access to oat milk lattes. But here's the thing, nobody wants to admit out loud. The treadmill is accelerating, and you're not getting anywhere. The finish line keeps moving. The rent keeps rising. Promotion keeps getting delayed. Somewhere deep down you know this doesn't end well. What if I told you this exact scenario has played out before, multiple times throughout history? And every single time, the people who escaped weren't the ones who worked harder within the broken system. They were the ones who walked away from it entirely. Let's talk about the year 1348. The Black Death had just wiped out a third of Europe's population. Cities were graveyards. Trade routes collapsed. The entire feudal system, which had kept peasants chained to estates for centuries, started crumbling. And something interesting happened. The survivors didn't rebuild the old system. They couldn't. There weren't enough people left to maintain it. Suddenly, peasants who'd been worth nothing had leverage. Land was abundant. Labor was scarce. For the first time in generations, ordinary people could negotiate. They could move. They could own land. The wealth that had been locked up in the hands of aristocrats quietly redistributed, not through revolution, not through policy, but through collapse and migration. The people who thrived weren't the ones who stayed in plague-ridden London hoping for things to get better. They were the ones who left for the countryside, claimed land, and built something new. Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution. Between 1760 and 1840, England transformed. Factories boomed. Cities exploded. Fortunes were made overnight. But here's what the textbooks skip over. The factory workers, the people actually building the wealth, lived in squalor. 14-hour days, child labor, air so toxic it turned the sky black. The new middle class, the clerks and managers, thought they'd won. They had steady jobs. They weren't getting their hands dirty. They were respectable, but they were trapped, tied to industrial cities. Renting cramped housing they'd never own. Working jobs that destroyed their health by 50, and the real winners, the ones who saw it coming, the merchant families who took their industrial-era profits and bought land. Estates, vineyards, agrarian wealth in regions the factories hadn't poisoned yet. They didn't stay in Manchester or Birmingham. They left. History has a pattern. When systems collapse, when wealth concentrates, when the promise of upward mobility becomes a lie, the smart money leaves. Not to bunkers, not to crypto islands, but to places where the cost of living is low, the quality of life is high, and you can actually build something that lasts. We're living through that moment right now. The AI revolution is the new industrial revolution. The gig economy is the new factory floor in your expensive city apartment. That's the new tenement housing. You just have polished concrete floors and a coffee subscription to distract you from the fact that you're still trapped. So what does the system tell you to do when you're drowning? Invest in stocks? Sure. With what disposable income? After rent, student loans, groceries, and the subscriptions you need just to function in modern society, you're lucky to have $200 left. That $200 in an index fund will make you rich in 40 years. If the market doesn't crash, if inflation doesn't eat it, if you don't need it for an emergency next month, learn to code, upskill, adapt, great advice. Adept AI is learning faster than you ever could. The skills that took you 2 years to master are now automated. And the new skills, they'll be obsolete in 3 years. You're not building expertise, you're running on a treadmill that's speeding up. Move to a cheaper suburb? Commute? So now you're spending 3 hours a day in traffic? Burning money on gas and still paying $2,500 a month for a place that's an hour from anything worth doing? You've traded urban misery for suburban isolation, and you're still broke. The system's solutions aren't designed to free you. They're designed to keep you in the game, keep you hopeful, keep you working, keep you consuming. Because the moment you stop, the moment you step off the treadmill, the entire structure loses a cog. But here's the crack in the facade. There are places right now in 2025 where none of this applies. Places where the cost of living is so low that you can work part-time remotely and live better than a six-figure earner in New York. Places where you can buy land, grow food, and build a life that doesn't require you to sell 60 hours a week to survive. The system doesn't want you to know about these places, because if everyone figured it out, the machine would stop. Southern Italy, specifically the regions of Calabria, Basilicata, and inland Sicily, not the tourist traps. The Amalfi Coast, where influencers sip limoncello. The interior, the forgotten zones. The villages with 300 people and houses selling for less than a used car. Here's what nobody tells you. These aren't ruins. They're functional towns with infrastructure, internet, train stations, and centuries-old communities. They're just depopulated because young Italians did exactly what you're doing. They moved to Milan and Rome chasing white-collar jobs and rent slavery. But the smart ones are moving back, and foreigners are quietly buying in. Let me give you real numbers. In a town like Cinquefrondi in Calabria, you can buy a renovated 2-bedroom stone house for under 30,000 euros. That's 30,000 euros, not a down payment, the whole house. Your mortgage in London or San Francisco costs more per year than this house costs in total. Your property tax? Maybe 200 euros a year? Utilities? Euro 50 a month? Groceries? Fresh vegetables? Local olive oil? Wine? And bread will run you 150 euros a month if you're eating well. No car needed, because everything's walkable. Internet is 25 euros a month, and it's fiber optic because the EU subsidizes rural connectivity. You could live comfortably in a beautiful historic town with mountain views and Mediterranean climate on 800 euros a month. It's $850, less than the cost of a studio apartment in most American cities. Now add remote work. You don't need a full-time job. You need enough to cover 800 euros a month. Freelance consulting? Part-time remote contract work? Digital products. 15 hours a week of actual productive work can cover that. This isn't retirement. This isn't giving up. You're taking your first world skills and applying them to a cost structure that allows you to breathe. But the real shift happens when you stop outsourcing everything. You buy land. Not much. Half an acre. A hectare if you're ambitious. And you plant a food forest. Olive trees, nut trees, perennial vegetables. Exactly like the crops we talked about in those survival videos, except this time it's not about prepping for collapse. It's about reducing your dependency on a system designed to extract from you. When you grow 40% of your own food, your cost of living drops even further. When your housing is paid off, you're not on anyone's timeline anymore. You're not grinding for a landlord's Porsche payment. Because you're in the EU, you have access to healthcare. Real healthcare. Not the American system where a broken arm bankrupts you. You're paying into the Italian system, which costs a fraction of what you'd pay in the US and actually works. The people doing this right now aren't millionaires. They're burned-out project managers. Former accountants. Mid-level software developers who realized they could work 20 hours a week remotely and live better than they did working 60 in Seattle. This is the modern version of what happened after the Black Death. The wealth and opportunity didn't disappear. It moved. It redistributed. And the people who recognized it early got land, autonomy, and time. The 3 things the system is designed to take from you. So here's your choice. You can keep believing the city will get affordable, that the job will get better, that retirement is real. If you just grind 5 more years, 10 more years, it'll all pay off. Or you can look at history and realize that inflection point is here. The system is breaking. The middle class is vanishing. The people who thrive won't be the ones who doubled down on what's collapsing. They'll be the ones who walked away. You don't need to quit tomorrow. You don't need a trust fund. You need a plan. Start researching towns. Look at property listings in Calabria, Basilicata, Abruzzo. Learn basic Italian. Build a remote income stream. Save enough for a one-way ticket and 3 months of living expenses. This isn't escapism. This is pattern recognition. Every major economic shift in history created a new geography of opportunity. And right now, while everyone's still crowded into expensive cities fighting over scraps, there are entire regions where you can buy in cheap, build something real, and live on your terms. The best time to do this was 5 years ago. The second best time is now, because in 5 more years, everyone will have figured it out. The arbitrage will close. The 30,000 euros houses will be 80,000 euros. And you'll be stuck wondering. Your grandchildren won't ask why you left the city. They'll ask why you stayed so long. If this shifted how you see your options, subscribe. I'm building a library of strategies for people who see what's coming and want to act before it's too late. The system doesn't give you permission to leave. You just leave.